What is it now?
They're framing it like he's just snatching 12 million people's health coverage away for no reason.
I mean, it was for a reason in the sense that the almost $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that were passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill were meant, among other things, to fund nearly $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, which we know disproportionately benefit those individuals in the top quintile of the economic bracket.
When what's really happening here is Trump introduced a work requirement, saying that before you can receive health coverage free of charge from the government, you have to work at least 80 hours per month.
The vast majority of Americans who are currently on Medicaid already fit the boundaries of these work requirements. 92% of Medicaid enrollees either work full-time or part-time, that 80-hour-a-week requirement that you suggest, or they are disabled, or they are caring for a family member that is disabled, or they are in school.
That is a whopping 2 weeks of full-time labor out of every month. These are meant to be social safety nets, not forever and ever gravy trains that you can just ride while refusing to work.
Again, 92% of Americans who are currently on Medicaid fit all of the eligibility requirements that are set by these work requirements. We also know that the idea that you're mentioning about people just like freeloading off of Medicaid for years and years on end is simply not true. Because of all of the income reporting requirements that it takes for individuals to get on Medicaid, what happens is that people are unable to keep up with the requirements year to year, or they become ineligible year to year. And that is why for adults who are under the age of 65 who don't have a disability, the typical length of coverage on Medicaid is just 8.6 months. For people with disabilities, that increases slightly to 10.8 months, but for the majority of people on Medicaid, it's less than a year. And according to economic studies on prior work requirements programs like those in Arkansas and Georgia, we know that what these work requirement programs are very good at doing is setting up a lot of red tape and making it very difficult for people to apply for Medicaid and for people to enroll in Medicaid, despite meeting the requirements that you are suggesting are just so easy to meet. Because again, 92% of individuals already meet those requirements. And what we know from evidence in Arkansas is that when you set up work requirements, employment doesn't change at all. In fact, the average unemployment rate in the state of Arkansas stayed the same. The only thing that did happen was a disenrollment of hundreds of thousands of people off of Medicaid.
If you would like to personally donate to a fund that allows people who refuse to work to receive health coverage free of charge, then be my guest. But I don't want my tax dollars forcibly taken out of my paycheck to pay for people who want to do that.
So instead of having your tax dollars go towards providing healthcare to some of the most vulnerable Americans, instead, you want your tax dollars to go to what exactly? Go towards funding an aggressive conflict where there is no end or reconciliation in sight that threatens to drive up inflation to almost 4.5% year over year? Or is a better use of our tax dollars paying a bunch of companies and organizations to set up these work requirements programs in these states, which effectively net out any sort of savings that you are getting from effectively kicking people off of their insurance that for the majority of which, again, 92% meet these requirements you suggest? Is that a better use of our tax dollars? I'm confused what exactly you're talking about here.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect you to work at least half of the month full time before you can receive something so valuable as health coverage at the taxpayer's expense.
Please, for the love of God, do not make me repeat this statistic again.
They're not asking you to contribute any of the wages that you earn to actually help pay for it. They're just trying to make sure that you're being a productive member of society, or at least trying to be, before you can receive something so expensive.
And you're right. Healthcare costs have been rising. Healthcare is getting way more expensive. But to suggest as a solution, we should kick nearly 11 million people off of their Medicaid in order to save money, while at the same time funding $4.5 trillion in tax cuts that mostly benefit the top quintile of Americans, is a very interesting interesting policy goal. And it's good to see where your head's at.